Okay. So thank you all for joining us once again for this study of Isaiah. Before we go into the precepts for tonight or the chapters for tonight, I wanted to give a little bit of a background of what we're going to be jumping into for the next 10 chapters. Tonight we're going to cover 13 through 16, but from 13 through 23 is where the prophet Isaiah begins to prophesy against the nations. These are Babylon, Philistia, Moab, Damascus, Cush, Egypt, Edom, Arabia, Jerusalem, and Tyre. And these lands in this time where Isaiah is prophesying had not risen and fallen. Some were in existence, but they were just desert lands. So they didn't have too many inhabitants. So we're going to see, the prophecies come to pass or how they came to pass. And of course, making the scripture connections of before and after. There is a huge connection with Revelations 17:3 and 5. So I'm going to go to that first. I thought I added it here. Let me see. Oh, here it is. Okay. So, and the reason why I want to read this first is because of the foreshadowing that we see in this. So Revelation 17:3-5 says, "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her head was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth." So the correlation here in this section is the 10 horns, and that's what I'm going to hone in on, because the number of nations that that Isaiah prophesies to are 10 nations. Of course, in that past time, those nations were in existence physically, again, like I said, and they do come into they do become inhabited lands. But if we think about their comparison to places in time right now, we're going to see throughout the scriptures some places that we'll be able to make comparisons to. So just keep that in mind. Isaiah 47 is also another prophetic, well, the whole book is prophetic in and of itself and apocalyptic in nature, but Isaiah 47 is also another prophecy type of chapter where Isaiah is prophesying against a nation. And I believe it's Jerusalem again in chapter 47, but we'll get there eventually. So these prophecies that we're going to read through did not begin to come to pass until about 60 years or so after Isaiah's death and during the reign of the king Jehoiakim, where Nebuchadnezzar invaded and took over Babylon. Then 18 years later, destroyed the temple in Jerusalem, and the Israelite captivity began. So the Assyrian alliance later destroys Babylon, like the Most High destroys Sodom and Gomorrah. So, it's always a matter of, like, we think about these leaders that are in place even now, and people ask all the time, like, but why is the Most High allowing these wicked leaders to be in leadership right now, or the ones in the past or the ones to come? It's all for his purpose. He allows things to take place. He allowed Nebuchadnezzar to come into leadership for a reason. Yes, and totally to fulfill prophecy. That's always been the purpose. So we can go ahead and start. Whoever's willing to read chapter 13 to start. Let me see if I can remove this. Yeah. Okay. Just to fill up the screen a little more. Yes, Nebuchadnezzar had a change of heart. Most of the kings, I know King Cyrus as well, funded the rebuilding of the temple and was not good at first. So, but ultimately, from what we've seen, leaders from now are not haven't necessarily had a change of heart, but they were still to fulfill prophecy. But yes, who would like to start with chapter 13? Anybody willing? Okay, awesome, Anita. Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself and you can start and I'll scroll down with you. If you can read until let's say verse 8, just to start.
Okay.
Okay.
The burden of the cup of cursing to give to Babylon to drink, which Isaiah the son of Amoz did prophesy. Against the fortified city that dwells securely, lift up the ensign, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand that they may go into the gates of the nobles. I have commanded those that are prepared by me. I have also called together my mighty ones, that they may avenge my wrath upon them, my strength and my praise. There is a voice of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, the voice of the tumultuous assembly of kings, of nations being assembled. The dawn of hosts is mustering the armies for battle. They are coming from a far country, from the ends of the earth, the Most High, and the vessels of the cup of cursings before him, to destroy all the wicked of the earth. Howl ye, for nigh is the day, ready to come from before the Lord, like spoil from before the Almighty, it shall come. Therefore shall all hands be slackened, and every man's heart shall melt. They shall be struck in consternation, distress and pain shall take hold of them. They shall tremble as with the trembling of a woman that it travaileth. They shall be amazed one at another. Their countenance shall be like flames of fire.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I wanted to first start out by pointing out this precept in Malachi to make a comparison to what a prophecy actually is, because here in the in the canon, let me go. Oh, I didn't open up Isaiah in the canon. Hold on one second. Okay, so my translation of the NIV, just to show you guys, because here it says burden, but in the NIV, oh, click here to change. It says a prophecy. So these are again all prophecies that we're gonna be going through over the next few chapters, or the next 10 chapters, so to speak. And they all say a prophecy against so and so, a prophecy against this nation, against that nation. So as we can see in the KJV, as it also says in Malachi, a prophecy is known also as a burden. So these prophets were carrying this burden that they had to release. They had to release these words over these nations to let these people know that stuff was about to go down, that they were going to have to pay for what was taking place in their lands and what the outcome was going to be. Some would call these next 10 chapters oracles of doom, because they're very dark. There's not much light. Of course, we can always see our Messiah in these scriptures. We could always find him all throughout, and we are going to see him. We are going to be able to identify him. But more than anything else, we are going to see the darkness that is associated with his wrath and the outcome of what these people who were lawless was going to take place. So in verse 3, let's see how it said it here. We see that it says my mighty ones. In the canon, it also says my mighty ones. But if we go to the Septuagint, if you've read the Septuagint, it's another ancient text. In the third verse, we see that the mighty ones are the giants. So I thought it was cool to point that out, how we're able to, the more ancient texts are able to point out that that the Most High was using even those demonic or the offspring of the fallen angels to fulfill his will, to carry out his will. Okay, so some connecting scriptures here. With verse 2, we have Jeremiah 51 and 58 that says, "Thus saith the Most High of Hosts, the broad walls of Babylon shall be utterly broken, and her high gates shall be burned with fire, and the people shall labor in vain, and the folk in the fire, and they shall be weary." So I also wanted to point out that these chapters, all of the woes or the oracles of doom, so how I mentioned, tie a lot in with Joel, the book of Joel. It's a very short book, and I was able to pick out a few precepts from this book that we'll be covering tonight. But if you were to read the book of Joel in conjunction with these 10 chapters, you're able to see a lot of similitudes, a lot of comparisons that really tie in together. I love the book of Joel because it's also a very apocalyptic book, but it has a lot of hope as well for the people who are in covenant and keeping his commands. So Joel 3:11 says, "Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about, thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Adon." So again, we see the mighty ones referenced here again. The Most High is using that offspring to carry out his will. Ezekiel 21 and 7. The next few precepts are going to tie in with verses 6 through 8, which is about the wailing. And this verse 7, I think, is the one that I saw that I was like, oof. "Therefore shall all hands be slackened, and every man's heart shall melt." There was something that I read earlier. I think it's in chapter, we'll cover it in chapter 16, but there is something about the heart and the stomach and that feeling, that gut feeling that you get, that we can call it discernment, we can call it the ruach, because we know the ruach is like right here in our core. But that like gut-wrenching feeling when you feel anguish, when you feel sadness, when you feel anxiety, that you feel it physically. So this is what that's referring to, that every man's heart will melt because it's like doom is coming and it's inevitable. So first we have Ezekiel 21 and 7, and it says, "And it shall be, when they say unto thee, Wherefore sightest thou, that thou shalt answer for the tidings? Because it cometh, and every heart shall melt, and all hands shall be feeble, and every spirit shall faint, and all knees shall be weak as water. Behold, it cometh and shall be brought to pass, saith the Most High." So another this one goes a little bit more in detail. So we have the heart shall melt, all hands will be feeble or weak, every spirit shall faint, the knees shall be weak as water. Weak as water, water is like flowy, so your knees become jiggly, I guess you could say. And again, it's something that's inevitable, that's going to take place. That's how our bodies will be physically manifesting. Joel 1:5 says, alas, for the day of the Most High is at hand, and as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come. Then we have as well Daniel. Oh no, that's it. That's it for these. We'll go into Daniel in a minute. So Anita, you can continue. Let me go back to the Targum, and you can read from 9 through 16 now, please.
Behold, the day from before the presence of the Lord cometh, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners out of it. For the stars of heaven and their constellations shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will visit the inhabitants of the world with the punishment for evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will put an end to the greatness of the wicked, and the strength of the mighty I will humble. And I will love them that fear me more than gold, in which the sons of men glory, and those that keep the law more than fine gold of Ophir. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place from before the presence of the dawn of hosts, and in the day of the fierceness of his anger. And he shall be as a roe chased, and as a sheep when there is none to gather them together. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one into his own land. Everyone that shall be found in her shall be slain, and everyone that shall enter into the fortified city shall be slain by the sword. And their children shall be dashed before their eyes, their houses shall be plundered, and their wives ravaged.
Oof, that's heavy. That's really heavy. So don't be surprised. That's what all of these chapters are gonna look like. But let's go into the connections here. So starting out with, I wanted to point out with verse 9, how it refers to. Yes, we're gonna cover those two, Anya. Thank you. I have them here as well. So let me go into the canon really quick. Nobody. Okay, verse 9. And it says, and he shall destroy sinners thereof out of it. And this is referring to, of course, obviously we all say that we're born sinners and all of that, but this is the intentional sinner, the one who has no regard or remorse for what they are doing. So just wanted to point that out there. But just to start, we have 1 Thessalonians 5:3, which says, for when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Then Matthew 24:29 through 31. So we're gonna make the connections with the signs of the eclipse, which I would say, might be something that we can make connections with. Matthew 24:29 through 31, that says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Then we have Ezekiel 32:7 and 8. And when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven and make the stars thereof dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. All the bright lights of heaven will I make dark over thee, and set darkness upon thy land, saith the Most High. And then, like Anya shared with Joel 2, we have verses 28 through 32. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood. Therefore, the great and the terrible day of the Most High come, and it shall come to pass that whoever shall call on the name of the Most High shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Most High hath said, and in the remnant whom the Most High shall call. And yes, verses 10 and 11, as I said, the whole book of Joel really ties in really well with all of these precepts, because everything is just so on point and intertwined. Then we have Revelation 8 and 12. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, and also the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. I personally believe, and I know that there's been other eclipses, but I believe that 2024 initiated changes and acceleration of time on another level. We've been seeing a lot of spiritual activity, and it's just so apparent. It's like the atmosphere is thick and evident that something is changing. We've seen it for a long time with, Mystery Babylon and all of the things that have been happening in the world, even since 2020, 2017, everything since 2001 when the Twin Towers fell. Just so many different things have shifted in this century, just in our lifetime. It's just right now in the year that we are living in, is like, wow, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive and to be witnessing everything that's happening. And I guess also the fact that we are aware, and the scriptures are so alive to us. And I was talking to Liz today about just that revelation of the Ruach after Shavuot. And not that I didn't know, that I had the spirit of the Elohim on the inside of me, but having that revelation that the same Ruach that hovered over the sea, hovered over the waters during creation, is living on the inside of me. Wow, it just gives me goosebumps, and it feels so overwhelming. And it's a reminder that those of us who are awake and who are appropriating that Ruach on a daily basis by staying connected to him, reading the scriptures, dying to ourselves, we can be used by him. And not because of anything that we're doing by our flesh, but because he is trying to show his wonders and the miracles that he's able to do through his people to bring more sheep into the sheepfold. And one of our sisters during prayer yesterday also, she said a prayer of repentance, and it really hit me as well, because yes, we talk about going after the one, we talk about bringing more people, more believers into the Great Awakening, or however you want to call it. But there are people who are awake right now who are going through so many things, and they need that love, that touch from one another, that bearing with one another in love. So it's just an all-encompassing thing that when you have him inside of you, it just changes things. And I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to have him and to have his ruach dwelling inside of me. And I do not take it lightly, not one bit at all. So with that, I wanted to go into again the Septuagint and read verse 11 here. And we're not going to go into the Septuagint too much tonight. I just wanted to hone in on these two verses that stood out. But here, verse 11. So let me pull it up here. And it says, and I will visit the inhabitants of the world with the punishment for evil and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will put an end to the greatness of the wicked, and the strength of the mighty I will humble. There's a little bit of a difference that I liked here in the Septuagint for verse 11. And it says, and I will command evils for the whole world, and I will visit their sins on the ungodly, and I will destroy the pride of transgressors, and will bring low the pride of the haughty. So we see that ongoing theme of that word pride. And I don't think that it's mentioned here, but I know it's also in the canon. I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease. And I don't want to put too much attention to it, but the month that we're going into, we all know what the alphabet people are celebrated for and what that represents. And they use that word proudly, and that's one of the things, as in the days of Noah, as in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, that it's coming to pass again, and it's so normalized in this lifetime. So here, the Most High is making it very clear that he is going to bring them down. They're going to be punished for their evil, their intentional sin that they're committing, because at the end of the day, that's an abomination to the Most High. And his intention is for man to be with woman, woman to be with man, for the purpose of procreation and continuing the inheritance that he promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So let's go back to some connections here. We have 1 Kings 22:17. And it says, and he said, I saw Israel scattered upon the hills as sheep that have no shepherd. And the Most High said, these have no master. Let them return every man to his house in peace. And this one is referring to verses 14 through 16. And he shall be as a roe chase and as a sheep when there is none to gather them together. So we start seeing connections as well. Even the Israelites who were dwelling in Babylon became sheep with no shepherd in that time as well. Haggai 2:6-7 say, for thus saith the Most High of hosts, yet once it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth, and the sea and the dry land, and I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come, and I will fill this house with glory, saith the Most High of hosts. And this is a promise here that we're able to see, and we have that promise that our Heavenly Father is going to bring a latter glory. In the midst of all of the darkness and in the midst of tearing down all of these principalities, there will be hope through our Messiah. Despite what we're reading right now. Okay, and then Hebrews 12:26-27. Whose voice then shook the earth, but now he hath promised, saying, yes, yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also heaven. And this word, yet once more, signifieth the removing of those things that are shaken, as of things that are made, that those things which cannot be shaken remaineth. And again, this ties in with verses 14-16. Basically, what the infants that would be violated, the wives the wives that would be ravished, the houses that would be plundered, all of the violence that would be taking place. Then we have Joel again, 3:16, that says, the Most High also shall roar out Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Most High will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Yasharallah. Lastly, we have Revelation 6:13 through 14. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their place. It's, I mean, what more can we say? This is like another alluding to trees, like we spoke of last week. Fig trees are also a big theme in the word. We know that our Messiah cursed a fig tree that wasn't bearing any fruit. So as we can see, again, Babylon is being referred to as a fig tree. That and here in Revelations, we're talking about mystery Babylon. So his people or people in general who are not bearing the fruits of the Spirit. I also wanted to point out that Babylon is rooted from the word Babel, and I did like a little word study on it. When you break down the word Babel, it has two bets and the word Lamet. Bet, if you look at the pictographs, I didn't pull it up, but if you look at the pictographs, it's a little like swirl type of thing that represents a house. So you have two houses, and Lamed is it looks kind of like a fishing hook. So it's like its definition is like a staff or control or authority. So right there, you're able to see two houses under control. And what two houses do we see ongoing throughout the scriptures? Israel and Judah. So even the word Babylon has meaning to it. And modern day Babylon, mystery Babylon, we're gonna see as we continue to read, there's more connections to it as well. So let's go ahead and finish the chapter. Anita, please, 17 through 22.
Behold, I am bringing up them the Medes, who are not impelled by silver, and as for gold, they delight not in it. And their bows shall strike through the young men, and they shall not compassionate the child of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare the children. And Babylon shall become she that was aforetimes the joy of kings, the beauty of the Chaldeans, excellency, as the overthrown wherewith the Adon overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall not be inhabited forever, nor shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch his tent there, neither shall the shepherds dwell there. But the marten shall lodge there, and their houses shall be filled with owls. And there shall be ostriches dwell, and devils shall delight themselves there. The wild cats shall shriek in their palaces, and dragons in the place of the abodes of their luxuries. And nigh to come is the time of the destruction of Babylon, and her days shall not be prolonged.
Babylon is on borrowed time, y'all. But again, this also just keeps speaking of the same theme that Abba will use whoever he needs to, however he needs, for his will to be done. First thing I want to point out is verse 17, how it's speaking of who are not impelled by silver, and as for gold, they delight not in it. So this basically sums up the matter that money means nothing. They want territory. They wanted to overtake the people. They wanted to control the people. What are we experiencing now in our day and age? And I've said it for the last 4 weeks. Money has no value. It's all about control. And that's what we're falling into. We saw it in 2020. We saw it with the mandates. We saw it with the and it's just been a matter of trying to program the people with the bread and circus, with the fighting of the two sides, the two political sides, and really trying to make it seem like we have a choice. And I don't know. I don't know about you, but I don't really think that the officials are truly elected by the people, by we the people. I think they are selected, and I believe that they are actors, being pulled by their puppet masters behind the green screen, and all to fulfill a prophecy that they know, that they read themselves in the scriptures. And that's why I'm loving this book so much, this book of Isaiah, because it's like, oh, it just pops up. It just pops up. Everything just pops up, and it's like, wow. Yeah, we see these lands that have different names, but everything ties in together. So let's go to some connections now. Yes, it's all there completely. All right, so Daniel 4:30 says, "The king spake and said, Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty?" We see the haughtiness, like the arrogance of the king, how he believed that he had built everything, he had done everything. Who who does this now? Who talks about all of the things that they were able to accomplish in 2020, all of the great things that they did for this country? Yes, exactly. And even our leader now, even who's in leadership now, even boasts about the things that they are doing for the people. That's how these politicians run. That's how they handle things. So we see how it's there was a fall of man in the Garden of Eden, but there was also a fall that took place when the Israelites begged for a king. Over and over again, they begged for a physical king. They wanted to be led by somebody that they could tangibly see, and all that came from that was destruction. All that came from that was destruction. So we have the monarchy that is in other countries like the UK, but here we have, right, government, presidency, and yeah, and absolutely, it's the lawless one at work. Absolutely. Um, yes, yes, Liz, and yes, Sylvie. It's for me personally, I believe it's all an agenda, and it's to keep people distracted, and take their eyes off of what really matters, which is being in the word and having the word speak to you so that you are aware of these distractions. All right. I don't want to go off topic too much. So going back here, Amos 4:11 says, I have overthrown some of you as the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and ye were as a firebrand plucked out of the burning. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Most High. And then Jeremiah 51:33, and then verse 43. And these tie into the last two precepts of the chapter. And it says, For thus saith the Adon of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor. It is time to thresh her, yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come. Her cities are a desolation, a dry land, and a wilderness, a land wherein no man dwelleth, neither doth any son of man pass thereby. So this is a foretelling of what Babylon is to become. So we can keep that in mind as a blessed hope. Keep looking for the blessed hope of what is going to be what we would be able to call the destruction of Mystery Babylon, Babylon the Great, however you want to refer to it. For verse 21, I find, let's go to that. No, I didn't have that written. I didn't have that pointed, set apart. So let's read it. But wild beasts shall rest there, and the houses shall be filled with howling, and monsters shall rest there, and devils shall dance there. You said it was 21? And satire shall dwell there, and hedgehogs shall make. Oh, okay. So Liz says that her version said sirens and demons. And we know that that the sirens or mermaids of the sea are the spirits of the mothers of the Nephilim. So the women who mated with the fallen angels. That's who sirens are known to be. So very interesting, very, very interesting. So that means the waters are going to be involved as well. Okay, let me read it. But wild animals will rest there, and the houses will be filled with noise. Their sirens will rest, and their demons will dance. Donkey centaurs, oh, that's interesting too, will dwell there, and hedgehogs will build nests in their houses. It is coming quickly and will not delay. It almost sounds like these Nephilim are and I know that we've have that theory as well, that these Nephilim are hidden underground and eventually are going to be in existence or in appearance again, walking on the earth. So a lot of stuff is about to happen or is going to happen. We don't know exactly when, but we say it over and over. Yes, absolutely. I believe they are amongst us. I know like in I've heard about caves in Mexico. I'm not exactly sure what city, but I've heard that there's people like who have traveled there and give like report of what their experience was. That's where like human sacrifices took place and in the Mayans times, and you can hear you can literally hear the screams of those sacrificed people. So I believe that there may be even giant activity there. I've listened to a podcast. I've shared it before with a few of you. It's called Blurry Creatures, and they share a lot about giants that have been uncovered in caves of in Peru, I believe, was one. I believe there was also a large red-headed man that was found in Afghanistan, and the person who was interviewed was like an ex-military guy, and he was sharing how he was the one that was transporting that giant in an airplane. Yeah, Blurry Creatures is awesome. It's on you can find it on the Apple Podcasts. I've been listening to them for a while now, and they don't always like hone in on scriptures with every single person that they interview, but they definitely like they say that their podcast is based around Genesis 6, which we know is about the giants and about the fallen angels. So yeah, it's very interesting what they share. Okay, so who wants to read chapter 14?
I guess I'll read. I was waiting to see if Jessica was gonna say something.
Okay, she's gonna read 15.
Who else? Let me see who else is connected. Oh, I see D made it. Hi D. Okay. Oh, Sylvie's on. All right. I'm gonna read then.
Okay. So
Chapter
you can start from 1 through 8.
I love this chapter, by the way, because it's so relatable
Yeah.
to so many things. All right.
Mhm.
Through 8, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the Adon will have compassion upon the house of Jacob, and will delight again in Yasharallah, and shall make them to dwell in their land. And proselytes shall be joined unto them, and they shall be united unto the house of Jacob. And the nations shall take them, and shall bring them to their land. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Shekinah of the Most High, for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were. Those who had made them their servants shall now serve them. Oof. And
Mhm.
it shall come to pass in that day that the Adon shall give thee rest from thy distress, from thy bondage, and from the hard servitude which was served upon thee. I cannot wait. Sorry for the interruptions, but woo! Little Pentecostal break there. All right. Verse 4, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how hath the dominion that made us servile ceased? How is come to an end the strength of the sinner? The Adon hath broken the strength of the wicked, the government of sinners, of him who was smiting the people in fury with a perpetual stroke, of him who was ruling the nations in anger, ruling and none hindered. The whole earth is at rest, is quiet. They rejoice with a song. I cannot wait. Anyway, verse 8, rulers also rejoiced over thee. The rich in treasure said, since thou art laid down, the destroyer is not come up upon us. So 8, right?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Okay, so first off, and actually we heard this week, so I had to write it down with verse 1. For the Most High will have compassion upon the house of Jacob. And this, well, first off, let me preface with this. This chapter does give us hope. You know, we are gonna go back into some of like the darkness after from verse 9 and on. But it does give us hope about the inheritance, those who are being redeemed, because the Most High does redeem his people through his commandments and through his Ruach HaKodesh. So it's beautiful. Now, verse 20, I'm sorry, verse 1, the Most High will have compassion upon the house of Jacob and will delight again in Israel and shall make them to dwell in their land, and proselytes shall be joined unto them, and they shall be united unto the house of Jacob. This was connected to Leviticus 25, verses 8 through 10, as being a jubilee, a year of rest. So let me read it. And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall ye make the trumpet sound throughout all your land, and ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and shall return every man unto his family. So again, a beautiful promise. Shavuot mirrors this idea because, as we know, Shavuot ties in with Pentecost meaning 50. And so that's something that's going to take place for his grafted in, no longer Gentiles, adopted Israelites. I also have a precept here in the book of Enoch, and it's chapter 5, verses 7 through 9. And it says, but for the elect there shall be light and joy and peace, and they shall inherit the earth. And then there shall be bestowed upon them, upon the elect, wisdom, and they shall all live and never again sin, either through ungodliness or through pride. But they who are wise shall be humble, and they shall not again transgress, nor shall they sin all the days of their life, nor shall they die of the divine anger or wrath, but they shall complete the number of the days of their life, and their lives shall be increased in peace, and the years of their joy shall be multiplied in eternal gladness and peace all the days of their life. So, like I said, there are beautiful promises here, speaking of his children who are his inheritance, who are in covenant with him, those who would be protected from the wrath. But one thing that also really stood out to me was here in verse 2. Yes, the barley. We're gonna go into the barley next week because I have a lot of notes written down. I think it was for chapter 17 or 18. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were. Those who had made them their servants shall now serve them. So we're gonna see like a switch take place. Right now, there's speaking of how Babylon will be binding Israel, but the tables will turn and Babylon will serve Israel in the end. Yes, I think it's I don't know why I didn't include it. Maybe I have it later on, but Revelations 3, I believe, right, Liz? I think it's Revelations 3. Oh, that's a word study I'm gonna do. Yeah, 3:9. 3:9 and 10 and 3:10 too. And I don't know if you have a different one, but I'm going to read this one really quick. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwelleth upon the earth. Yes, we had the same one. We're thinking the same. All right, awesome. Let me go back over here. I think that was it for what I have for that portion. Yeah, okay. So Liz, you can read now 9 through 13.
Okay. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. She rouseth for thee the mighty. All the rich and treasures, all the kings of the nations rise from their thrones. All of them shall answer and say unto thee, Art thou become sick as we? Unto us thou hast become like. Thy glory is brought down to the grave, the rattling noise of the songs of thy musical instruments. The worm is spread under thee, and upon thee vermin. How art thou cast down from on high, who wast shining among the sons of men as the star Venus? Among the stars. I love this Targum's translation. Okay, thou art dashed down to the earth, who wast a slaughterer among the nations. So 13, right?
Actually, go ahead and read through 20.
Okay. And thou hast said in thy heart, I will climb up the heavens. I will place the throne of my kingdom above the people of the Most High, and I will sit upon the mountain of the solemn assembly, upon the ends of the north. I will have the ascendancy over all people. I will be higher than all of them. But to the grave thou shalt be brought down, to the ends of the pit of the place of perdition. Those that see thee shall look attentively at thee. They shall consider thee and say, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that laid waste kingdoms? that made the world as a wilderness, that laid waste its cities, and did not open the gate to his prisoners. All the kings of the nations, all of them, lie down in glory, each in his eternal abode. But thou art cast out of thy grave as a hidden abortion, as those hidden among the slain, as those pierced by the sword, as those that are descending the lowest pit of the place of destruction, as a carcass trodden underfoot. Thou shalt not be like one of them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy country, thou hast slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall not be established forever.
Oof. There's a lot there.
That Venus one, you
Yes,
captured that? I'm sure you
yes,
did.
yes,
Sorry,
yes.
I'm gonna mute myself.
No, but that was like, okay, I had not seen that. In the canon it says morning star. That's where we see the morning star. And we know that angels are referred to as stars. He is not, and this is also talking about Hasatan, who has many names. Satan, in the book of Jubilees, he's called Mastema, Hasatan, Apollyon, so many different names for the enemy, so many different attributes that are akin to just ultimately being the accuser of the brethren, the destroyer. But we are also able to see that his aim is to darken. His aim is to darken our thinking. So let me go to the canon really quick here. Let me see. We are verse 12. Okay. So again, like I was saying, his aim is to darken our thinking, to take over our mind, so to speak, in the way that we see the world, in the way that we see just society as a whole. His name, as we see in most translations, he's called Lucifer, right? Lucifer is translated as light bearer, shining one, morning star. That it's also connected to the king of Babylon and Hasatan himself. And I wanted to make that connection as well because he's there's a lot of I statements here. I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit enthroned on the Mount of Assembly. And we see here as well that he also had territory. He had territory here on in this realm. Yes, exactly. Emphasizing idolatry, self-worship. But I also wanted to point out that this word also has another root, which is halal or halal. And me and a couple of my sisters were having this conversation on Tuesday about halal. What is halal? Halal is a ritual that the Islamic use when they pray over meats, when they pray over food, when they pray over things. So we see that it has a very negative connotation. So we have made like that connection of, if you see any meat that like on the back of it there, and there are meats that say it, that they'll be called like halal beef, halal gyro, like the gyro meat from those Mediterranean restaurants, that gyro meat is halal. So you want to kind of avoid that. And I know, of course, we have the power to rebuke it or cancel it or however you, or pray against it, but just in erring on the side of caution, you want to just be careful. Oh wow, Anya, I'm so sorry. I mean, but again, you didn't know, and we grow every year. We grow and we do things differently, right? So again, Isaiah 14:12. So that's, I just wanted to point it out. My translation actually doesn't say Lucifer, it just says morning star, but again, it's translated the same way. So it's also the Strong's 1966 and then the Strong's 1984. This is where you see the actual halal. Because in the 1966 is halal, but it still has the same meaning. And we see all of this: to shine, to praise, to boast, to be boastful, boastful ones, boasters. So a lot of self-worship here. But again, also to make a fool of, make a mockery, fooling themselves ultimately, fooling himself, thinking that he has the last say. So let's go over here now to these connections. And this is just a reminder, 2 Corinthians 10, verses 3 through 5. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Haya, to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of the Elohim, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Mashiach. So he has dominion over this realm, but we know that we serve a mighty Elohim who is able to overcome everything. And as I was speaking of it earlier, with the Ruach on the inside of us, we are able to cast down every vain imagination, pull down those strongholds, and fight this good fight of faith with him on our side. Luke 10:8 through 12 says, and in whatsoever city ye enter, and they receive you, eat such things as are set before you, and heal the sick that are therein, and say unto them, the kingdom of the Elohim is come nigh unto you. But into whatsoever city ye enter, and they receive you not, go your ways out into the streets of the same, and say, even the dust of your city which cleaveth on us, we do wipe off against you. Notwithstanding, be ye sure of this, that the kingdom of the Elohim come nigh unto you. But I say unto you that it shall be more tolerable in that day for Sodom than for that city. So we know that there are certain, as I was talking about that place in Mexico earlier, there are certain areas, certain regions that have more darkness than others and are going to deny the Most High altogether. So that's just something to keep in mind. We are to witness to everybody that we can possibly witness to, but there are going to be those who deny the gospel, and we are to just dust off our feet and know what the end result is going to be regardless. With that being said, these are precepts about Hasatan and the fact that he still had access to the Father. Okay, so first we see Psalm 82:1 that says, the Most High standeth in the congregation of the mighty, he judgeth among the gods. And then Job 1:6-7, we know this, we know the book of Job and how it started very well. Now there was a day when the sons of the Elohim came to present themselves before the Most High, and Satan came also among them. And the Most High said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Adon and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. So we see it's twofold here. He is able to walk up and down through the whole earth, watching over and looking who he can torment and attack, and still come to the throne of the Elohim and receive instruction or even petition to him about the people that he wants to attack. Now, there is in verse 13, let me see if here in the canon it says it as well. Okay, so let me look. So both these translations speak about simply about a mountain, but my NIV refers specifically to Mount Zaphon or Zaphon. It was a mountain in Canaan. So Zaphon was the most sacred mountain of the mountain of the Canaanites, or the sacred mountain of the Canaanites. So basically speaking, and this is something that I read somewhere else in the Canaanite mythology, this was where the gods would gather to meet. So the mighty ones, this was a place that they would gather to meet. And so this is where Hasatan said that was his throne. This was where his assembly was, where he would confer with his demons, if you will, to send them out into the earth and do his bidding. But we know that our Heavenly Father reigns supreme. So let's read about that. Ezekiel 28:11 through 19. Now this one's a little bit long, but I did want to read through the whole thing. And it says, "Moreover, the word of the Adon came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus saith the Elohim, Thou sealest up the sum full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of the Elohim. Every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold." And if you count these stones, there's only 9. In the ephod of the high priest, there were 12 stones. So we see that Satan, Hasatan, only had 9 out of the 12. So just to point that out quickly. The workmanship of thy tabrets, and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of the Elohim. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee. By the multitude of thy merchandise, they have filled the midst of thee with violence, and thou hast sinned. Therefore, I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of the Elohim, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, and from the midst of the stones of fire. Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee. Thou hast defiled thy sanctuaries by the multitude of thine iniquities, by the iniquity of thy traffic. Therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of thee, it shall devour thee, and I will bring thee to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all of them that behold thee. And all they that know thee among the people shall be astonished at thee. Thou shalt be a terror, and never shalt thou be any more. So, of course, this is a prophecy that Ezekiel is prophesying to a king, but that king was a representation of Hasatan in his time. This is speaking of Hasatan, particularly, I wanted to hone in on verse 14 because we're going to do, I'm going to show you guys a quick word study here for this one as well. He was the anointed cherub that covereth. So let's look at that really quick. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of the Elohim. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. So let's look at... So he was the Mimsa, Karub, Sakak, Natan. No, Sakak, sorry. So he was basically, if you look at what he did, what his assignment was, he was a high priest, basically, in the heavens. He was the one who oversaw the covering or the protection of the temple of the Most High in the heavens. And he had a very high position. And because he had that high position got to his head. I know a lot of people talk about how he was the leader of the music, and of course, yes, he's the prince of the power of the air, the prince of the airwaves, but that's what that's more like what he appropriated once he fell out of the heavens. But here we're able to see that he was a high ranking cherubim who was basically manning like the Garden of Eden. Like he was covering over the Garden of Eden. When we look at the Ark of the Covenant, there are two cherubs there, right? There were two cherubs that were placed there with their wings covering over the Ark of the Covenant. And we can infer that Hasatan was known as one of those two cherub that was covering over it. So how mighty or how far did he fall? He still has access, but we're able to see that our Heavenly Father reigns supreme. And yes, and he was not only jealous of mankind, but he was jealous of the Messiah himself. I would even venture to say possibly it was him and Messiah in the, covering over. And because he messed up so badly, now obviously we only have our Messiah. And which, I'm sure that the Most High, our Heavenly Father, knew all of these things would come to pass, but it had to happen that way in order for us to have our Savior after Hasatan fell and took dominion of the earth, after he tempted Adam and Eve in the garden. It's just so much, it's so deep, really. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, so yes, he was to basically serve us as his image, and it was too much for him to handle. He wanted all of the attention. And aren't there so many people like that in this world? The narcissism, it's sad and it's kind of disgusting. And all of us can fall into that, honestly. Like it's so easy to in this world and in this society to fall into that self-worship and the independence, and even women, like, we can do for ourselves, we don't need a man, that kind of mentality. So yeah, we got to stay humble. Okay, so Obadiah 1:4 says, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest upon the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Most High. So again, this is another reference to Hasatan. And Revelation 12:3-5. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto the Elohim and to his throne. So again, we see another reference to the 10 horns, those 10 nations that I mentioned earlier, is where Satan has dominion over. Very interesting connections here. And let's see, I don't know that I have, oh yeah, Job Hold on, because I'm okay. Matthew 4. Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and saith unto him, all these things will I give thee if thou wilt fall down and worship me. So we see here a confirmation of the dominion that the enemy had. There have been some who have said that this exceeding high mountain may have been the floating city that he took him to, and then he showed him all of the earth, and the powers that he would have over it if he bowed down to him, what the enemy was promising to Messiah, and how he was trying to taunt him and tempt him to bow down to him. And this was during that 40-day fast that our Messiah did. So imagine, he's hungry, he's probably super irritable, desperate for some kind of peace. And here is this wicked Hasatan coming and trying to tempt him with all of these riches, with bread, with everything. And how does our Messiah respond? It is written. Every single time he responds, I think it was 3 times he's tempted, 3 times he responds, it is written. So he responds to him with the scriptures, with the word of the Most High, which is how we should respond, always. Yes, taking advantage that he was in his flesh and in this fallen world. And it's so beautiful that our Messiah rose up against it and stood by the word instead. Now we have Revelation 3, verses 15 through 18, that says, I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would that thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. So this is like basically we're being taunted daily, and there are many who are lukewarm, but we have to choose a side, always choose a side. And hopefully we'll choose the hot side, staying hot and staying with him. Even when we are tried by fire, so that we can come out as the pure gold that he wants us to be. Which ties into Philippians 4 and 8, because we are being rejected daily, yet we shouldn't be responding the way that the world does, thinking on the things that he wants us to think on. So finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Keep a heavenly mindset, the mind of our Messiah. And then Job 18, and then this Psalm precept. These two tie into the last 2 verses that we read. Sorry, I have to move some stuff around here. But you are cast out of your tomb like a rejected branch. You are covered with the slain, with those pierced by the sword, those who descend to the stones of the pit, like a corpse trampled underfoot. You will not join them in burial, for you have destroyed your land and killed your people. Let the offspring of the wicked never be mentioned again. And here, Job 18, 16 and 19 say, his roots shall be dried up beneath, and above shall his branch be cut off. He shall neither have son nor nephew among his people, nor any remaining in his dwellings. And then Psalm 37, 28, for the Most High loveth judgment, and forsaketh not his saints. They are preserved forever, but the seed of the wicked shall be cut off. And that's, again, a reference to that rejected branch. Okay, so Liz, you can continue verses 21. Actually, you can read all the way through the end. I don't have too much more to connect, but we are going into the prophecy against the Philistines about halfway through, starting in verse 28. Let me go down to 21. Okay, go ahead.
Prepare ye slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, lest they rise and possess the earth, and the faces of the world to be filled with enemies. And I will reveal myself to take vengeance of them, says the Lord of hosts. And I will destroy of Babylon the name, and the remnant, and the son, and the son's son, says the Adon of hosts. And I will make it an inheritance for the hedgehog, a place of desolation, pools of water, and I will sweep her as they are sweeping with a besom, and I will throw her down to destroy her, says the Adon of hosts. The Adon of hosts has sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so shall it be, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand, to break the Assyrian in my land, and upon the mountains of my people I will tread him under foot. Then there shall depart from them his dominion, and his yoke off from their necks shall cease. This is the purpose that is purposed upon all the inhabitants of the earth, and this is the might of the ruler which is lifted up over all the kingdoms. For the Adon of hosts has purposed, and who can remove it? Yeah, his power is exalted, and who can withstand it? In the year of the king Ahaz died was the burden of this prophecy. Rejoice not, Philistia, all of ye, because of the government that hath made you servile is broken. Because from the children of Jesse shall come forth the Messiah, and his works among you shall be as a flying serpent. And the poor of my people shall be fed, and the meek in his days shall dwell in safety. And he shall slay with famine thy children, and the remnant of thy people he shall kill. How on account of thy gate, cry on account of thy city, ye Philistines, all of you. Ye shall be broken, because from the north vengeance is coming, and is not delaying its appointed time. Moedim. And what good news will they tell the messengers of the nations? That the Adon has founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall trust in it. Amen.
Amen. There's always a hope. There's a lot of destruction spoken of, but there's always a hope. And we pray that we are not in the midst of, or even if we are in the midst of the destruction, we are protected from it, as is spoken of in Jacob's trouble in Jeremiah 30. And okay, so let's go up over here. All right, so I don't have too many, just 3 precepts before we go into chapter 15. Of course, we know our Messiah is referenced here in verse 29, because from the children of Jesse shall come forth a Messiah, and his works among you shall be as a flying serpent. That's really interesting there. It's in the canon, it says its fruit will be a darting venomous serpent. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. But going back, for verse 24, which says, the Most High Almighty has sworn, surely as I have planned, so it will be, and as I have purposed, so it will happen. We see that that was quoted here in Acts 4:28, that says, for to do whatsoever thy hand and thy counsel determined before to be done. And then this prophecy against the Philistines that begins in verse 28, as we can see, there are, well, the NIV translation, and I think the ESV, I don't know that the KJV says, like, actually points out that it's the prophecy against Philistia. Let's see. Okay, judgment on Philistia. So we see that it begins here, but it's connected. If you guys want to write it down for your own reading, it's connected to 2 Kings 16 through 18. Yeah, yes, burden or prophecy. So 2 Kings 16 through chapters 16, 17, 18, and 2 Chronicles 28 and 29 tie into these prophecies or these woes. Now going back over here. So the last portion, verse 32, which says, "What answer shall be given to the envoys of the nation? The Most High has established Zion, and in her his afflicted people will find refuge." So we have Hebrews 11:10, which says, "For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is the Most High." Oh, yes. The precepts are 2 Kings chapters 16, 17, and 18. And then 2 Chronicles 28 and 29. The whole chapters. Okay, and then James 3 and 5. "Even so, the tongue is a little member and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth." So again, for all of their boasting, for everything, and that's actually tying into verse 31 that says, "Wail, you gate, howl, you city, melt away all you Philistines. A cloud of smoke comes from the north, and there is not a straggler in its ranks." All of this is inevitable, point blank. Okay, so now we are going into the prophecy against Moab. And I'm gonna give a little intro before Jessica reads, because Moab is mentioned a lot in the Torah. There's a lot that took place from the beginning in Genesis with Abraham and Lot. As we know, the Moabites descend from Lot, which was Abraham's nephew. And Lot was one of Abraham's disciples, one of his closest disciples, if you think about it. He was with him, like he was traveling with him all throughout his time. And yes, from him and his daughters, or one of his daughters. But they eventually went their separate ways. But even so, Abraham still stood up for Lot. He prayed for him. He asked the Most High to spare his life. And in sparing his life, that's where he had his intercourse with his daughters. And through one of his daughters was where the Moabites came. And they received a land of inheritance. Now, when the Israelites came out of Mitzrayim or Egypt, they were instructed not to go into Moab. And this was because of the promise that the Most High made to Abraham. He was keeping his word. So basically, yes, he got raped by his daughters. But he basically, the Most High was keeping his word, that the promise that he made to Abraham to give that land over to the Moabites for their inheritance. And so the Israelites were not allowed to go into that land and take it over. Eventually, if you read through the scriptures, through Kings and Chronicles, you're able to see that the Amorites take over that land, take over Moab. So then the Israelites take over or invade the Amorites and end up taking that land as their inheritance anyway. But already by the time that they take over it, Moab is not inhabiting that land, so to speak. They are there, maybe a remnant of them is there, but they don't have dominion over it any longer. So in Numbers, Moab goes against the Israelites, they had the land restrictions that they had, and the king of Moab curses or wants to curse Israel through Balaam. If you've read Numbers 21 through 25, I think we're going to read a little bit on Numbers 25, but if you've read through those chapters in the Torah portions, you know that Balaam was commissioned to prophesy against Israel, and the Most High did not allow it to happen. And the king of Moab was upset. So there's something else that ended up happening. So we'll go into that as well. And even so, with all of that, with all of the darkness surrounding the Moabite people, the Most High still plucked one out. And if you know the story of Ruth, you know that Ruth was a Moabite, and she is in the lineage of our Messiah. And this was just to show that no one is ever too far gone to be redeemed by the Father. I believe that the story of Ruth is a redemption story, and that is the message that it carries. So I think that's all I'm gonna share for now. Jess, you're still gonna read, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So let me go here, and you can read from. Sorry, let me actually just read through the whole chapter. It's only verses.
Okay. The burden of the cup of cursing to give Moab to drink, because in the night Lehayath, Moab is destroyed, and they were asleep. Yeah, in the night the fortified city of Moab was subdued, and they were in deep slumber. They went up to the houses in Dibon, to the high places, to weep over Nebu, and over Medeba. The Moabites are howling. On every head is baldness, every beard is shorn. In their streets they shall gird themselves with sackcloth on their housetops, and in their broad places all of them shall howl, crying and weeping. And the inhabitants of Heshbon and Elealeh shall cry out loud. Unto Jahatz is their voice heard. Therefore the armed of Moab are howling and crying out loud for their souls. The Moabites shall think to flee to Zoar, unto Eglath Tiltum, Rabtha. For the ascent of Lahith, they shall ascend it as with weeping, because in the descent of Horonaim they shall declare the cry of the broken in battle. For the waters of Nimrim shall become desolate, for the herbage is withered away. The grass faileth, there is no green herb. Therefore the remnant of their riches shall be plundered, and their border, which is by the western sea, shall be taken from them. For their cry encompasses the border of Moab. Unto Eglaim are they howling, and unto Bir Elim are they crying aloud. For the waters of Dimon shall be full of blood. For I will appoint upon Dimon an assembly of armies. Upon the escaped of Moab, a king with his army shall ascend, yeah, to spoil the remainder of their land.
This is ugly, ain't it? So this is just the beginning of the prophecy against Moab, because it goes into chapter 16 as well. And I want to go into the canon, because just starting with verse 5, because of course we can see we're speaking of first, our Moab is ruined and destroyed in a night, because in the night Kir of Moab was laid waste and brought to silence. We've seen a lot of precepts that talk about in one night, in the twinkling of an eye, in 1 hour, Babylon will fall. Same as for Moab. Same concept here. And we don't know in the scope of time what that really means. Our Messiah, our Heavenly Father are outside of time and space. So that's just something to be left up to interpretation. And for some reason, verse 5 in the Targum is a little bit different. It's speaking about them weeping. And I did want to point out that the Moabites cried due to their destruction, as Balaam, and we can see in the scriptures, that Balaam willed over his own selfish gain. But on the other side, we see in the canon where Isaiah is saying, "My heart shall cry out for Moab." So he felt compassion. And as I said earlier, as we've seen, these are burdens that he has, these prophecies that he has to speak over the people. It's not fun. It doesn't feel good to have to speak destruction over a people, but it is the assignment that he has. So I wanted to connect it here also to Revelations 8:1, which says, "And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour." And when I read this before, when we talk about the space of a half an hour, we've compared it to like a 6-month period of silence or of peace or of destruction. There's a lot of connections to it. And as Liz said, also every prophet like Daniel, they were shaken to their core when they would see end time visions of destruction. Yes, exactly. So when this seventh seal is opened and there's silence in heaven, it's almost like they're having like this moment of silence, like, okay, this is happening. It has to happen. It's inevitable. It doesn't feel good, which is why I wanted to also read Proverbs 24, which says, "For a just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief. Rejoice not when thine enemy falleth, and let not thine heart be glad when he stumbleth, lest the Most High see it and it displease him, and he turn away his wrath from him. Fret not thyself because of evil men, neither be thou envious at the wicked, for there shall be no reward to the evil man. The candle of the wicked shall be put out. My son, fear thou the Adon and the king, and meddle not with them that are given to change, for their calamity shall rise suddenly, and who knoweth to ruin them both." So what does that tell us? When we see evil people thriving, we know what their outcome is going to be, right? We know that people who are not following the ways of the Most High and are still have these earthly riches, it's all here in this realm, but they will not inherit the kingdom of the Most High. Even so, when we see the fall of these wicked people, we're not to celebrate, because it's not a good thing that people are not turning away from their wicked ways and having to face this sentence of calamity, of destruction. A lot of us, and I agree with you, Liz, his Ruach in us would not allow us to rejoice. And so many of us, I know we've shared this many times, even on the prayer calls, that we feel an anguish, we feel grief towards the people that we love, that we know are not walking with the Most High. And when you think about like someone that's rejecting the truth from you, it's easy to maybe fall into like this thought process of, oh, they're gonna see, and I told you so type of mentality when things start to hit the fan, right? But we can't do that. We can't think that way. We have to remember that we're all creation, and everyone has the opportunity to turn their life around and turn to the Most High and turn away from their wicked ways. As it says, I believe it's in 1 Peter 5:8, that he does not rejoice in the fall of anyone, but he wants everyone to come into full repentance. And Anya said, no matter your worst enemy, oh, I lost it. No matter your worst enemy, I wouldn't wish eternal separation from the Most High or hell, which was made for the fallen angels. Yes. And I feel like if we recall in the book of Enoch how the fallen angels wanted Enoch to pray for them because they knew that he was righteous, and they felt grief seeing their children, the Nephilim, being destroyed. So even them even them had regret. Even they had regret when they came down and made that pact with Semyaza. I don't know. I think it's Enoch. I want to say Enoch. Oh, I have the book of Enoch open here. Oh, it's actually here, chapter 6. They all made a pact to, I'm gonna read it actually since we're here. Okay, so, and it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Semyaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. So it's like they knew what the outcome was going to be, but they all agreed to do it. So they all answered him and said, let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of their leaders. Well, all of them. These are the chiefs, their chiefs of 10. So again, as we saw, they all with them took unto themselves wives. Each chose one, each chose for himself one, and they began to go into them and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots. So we all know what took place when the fallen angels mixed with the women. Yeah, I'm not gonna go. I could read them maybe, but I'm not gonna go into that. But again, that I say all of that, I brought that in just to say that they spread everything that they did all of the things that they did, and there was a lament that came out of them because they knew what the outcome was going to be. And so we should not celebrate the fall of any enemy. We are to walk in love. And that's the point of what I wanted to say. So the last thing I wanted to point out is, let's see here, for verse 9. Let's see how it renders in the KJV. For the waters of Dimon shall be full of blood, for I will bring more upon Dimon, lions upon him that escapeth of Moab, and upon the remnant of the land. My translation says a lion upon the fugitives of Moab and upon those who remain in the land. Nebuchadnezzar was also used as a lion for destruction, and he took over many lands before he finally ended up taking over Israel and Judah. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out there. I don't have anything else for this chapter. Who can read chapter 16?
If no one else can, I can.
Okay. Thank you. Let me scroll down. Right. Okay, go ahead, Jess.
All right. Where do you want me to stop?
Yes. You can read 1 through 5 for now.
Okay. They shall bring tributes to the Messiah of Israel, who shall prevail over those who are in the wilderness unto the mountain of the congregation of Zion. Otherwise it shall come to pass as a bird which men have driven away, being cast out of its nest, the daughters of Moab shall be led round about, made to Wadi Arnon. Take counsel, execute counsel. Make thy shadow as the night in the day, in the midst of the moon of the noonday. Hide the outcast, touch not the dispersed. Let my outcast dwell with thee, O kingdom of Moab. Be thou a covert to them on account of the spoilers, for the extortioner is at an end. The spoiler sees it. All that trampled underfoot have come to an end. Then the throne of the Messiah of Israel shall be established in goodness, and he shall sit upon it in truth in the city of David, judging and seeking justice and executing truth. Woo!
Amen. Yes. There's always that promise of what our Messiah is going to do. So, just to give a little bit of a background here, once again, the land of Moab, the king of Moab, used to pay tribute to Israel. And so he used to send sheep, and we're gonna read here in Kings how that worked. So, and Mesha, king of Moab, was a sheep master, and rendered unto the king of Israel 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with the wool. But it came to pass when Ahab was dead that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. And this, if you read this chapter, 2 Kings 3, you're able to see that what the story, the context of that story is that then the king of Israel goes to Judah and asks for Judah's alliance to go against Moab. And they gather around, and they're marching. I think it's for like 7 days. And Elisha the prophet was with them. And so they start to get thirsty, and the land is dry. They can't get any water. And they ask for the prophet to prophesy. And at first, Prophet Elisha is like, why don't you confer with your gods? Because obviously during this time, both the king of Israel, and this was Ahab's son, and the king of Judah were not living for the Most High. They weren't keeping the commands. They had their high places. They had their gods. And so at first he tells them, why don't you confer with your gods? And they said, no, we want a word from your Adon. And so the Most High does give them favor. He does tell them that they are going to overtake Moab. And Moab sees them over the land, and they think that they're going to be successful. So I believe overnight, what ends up happening is that the Most High does fill a ravine with water, but from where the Moabites are sitting or standing at the mountain, in the valley, they see the water as if it were blood. So they thought that Israel and Judah had gone against each other and killed one another. And they said, oh, well, now this is our time to go and plunder the land. So they go down and they meet an army ready to battle, and that's when Israel and Judah take over Moab. And this was basically because of the fact that the Moabite king had chosen to stop giving his sacrifices or his offering of sheep over to Israel. And I think that kind of also ties in with our lamb, our Messiah. and how he became the sacrifice for us as well. I wanted to make the connection with the daughters of Moab because I mentioned earlier Numbers 21 through 25. And this is a reference to what the daughters of Moab did. So, and Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined himself with Baal Peor, and the anger of the Most High was kindled against Israel. So, one thing that Balaam did do, that he did not prophesy against Israel, but he taught or advised the king what to do in order to bring the men down, and it was to entice them with the daughters of Moab. And if you read, I think it's here in Numbers 25, maybe in Numbers 24, he instructs them on building basically whorehouses. That's my interpretation. They would sell food, and they had oh my gosh, what is the word? Brothels where they would go, and that's the purpose was to let out their steam. And yeah, so that's a connection with verse 2. And with what I mentioned, with this precept in 2 Kings 3, the way that we can connect this to modern day, US and Ukraine, the US and the Ukraine. So we see the US giving a lot of money over to Ukraine, right? How all that humanitarian aid. Basically, it's like laundering of money, because the money just comes right back. It circulates right back over here. And it's so we can say that Ukraine is very similar to Moab, as the US is very similar to Babylon, and also Islam and things like that. But ultimately, there's a lot of connections with, when you think about Mystery Babylon, extortion here in the US, plundering of homes, the money being given to the elites, housing refugees, just all of these things that are taking place here and now took place back then, in a different way. Maybe, possibly it looked different, but ultimately that's what was taking place. There are people, and I would say maybe of the Jewish sect, that believed that Hezekiah was the Messiah, because of what he did, bringing the people back into covenant and rebuilding the temple and all of the things, or reconsecrating the temple and all of those things that took place. But really, we see the Messiah here established, and he shall, as it says here, and he shall sit upon it in truth in the city of David, judging and seeking justice, executing truth. In the canon, let me go to verse 5. So here it doesn't say, let me go to the NIV, because for some reason the NIV is a little bit more specific. Okay, so one from the house of David, and we see that it says Hebrew tent, or a sukkah. So I just liked the connection here because of the fact that, when we tabernacle with him, which I guess when you think about how it says it in the KJV, it says the tabernacle of David. So the tent, yes, yeah, Liz. The NKJV also says it, okay. So yeah, to tabernacle with our Messiah during the appointed time. So that's it for that part. Jess, you can read through the rest of the chapter, verses 6 through 14.
Okay. We have heard of the princes of Moab, who are very proud, their nobles and their delicate ones, and their pride shall not profit them when their punishment comes. Therefore the Moabites shall howl over the Moabites, all of them shall cry aloud, and they shall howl over the men of the city of their strength. Day and morning shall say, surely they are conquered. Because the armies of Heshbon are spoiled, the multitude of Sebama are killed, the kings of the people have killed their rulers. They reached unto Jazer, they strayed to the desert, their outcasts passed by, they crossed the sea. Therefore, as I have brought armies against Jazer, so will I bring slayers against Sibma. I will water thee with my tears, O Heshbon and Elealeh. For upon thy harvest and upon thy vintage the robbers have fallen, and joy is taken away, and gladness out of the fruitful field, and in the vineyards they shall not rejoice, neither shall they play sport. In the vats the treaders shall not tread out the wine. The treading of grapes I have made to cease. Wherefore the bowels of the Moabites shall sound as a harp, and their heart shall mourn over the men of the city of their strength. And it shall come to pass that one shall see that when Moab is wearied out upon his high place, he shall enter his idol temple to pray, yet he shall not prevail. That is the word which the Adon spake concerning the Moabites long ago. But now the Most High hath spoken, saying, within 3 years, as the years of an hireling, the glory of the Moabites shall come to an end with all that great multitude, and the remnant shall be small, a few, all their glory shall come to an end.
Whew. All right. So starting with verse 6, we see again the word pride is mentioned here. And that's the root of everything. How people who are very proud, who are arrogant, haughty, lovers of themselves, there's going to be destruction for them. That's why I connected this verse, Matthew 5:5, which says, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And now in connection with, well, first off, let me go over here. Here we see with within verses, I believe it's 7, 8. So we see the fields of Heshbon languish, and the vine of Sibma, the lords of the heathen have broken down the principal plants thereof. Her branches are stretched out, they are gone over the sea. The vine of Sibma in verse 9, the summer fruits, the harvest is falling. So all of these allude to the people. So you can think of like the fine cuttings, the let's see, where was it that I saw? The summer fruits, and the vineyards, all of these things can be akin to the fine cuttings of the fields, or the elite military, or just like the regular people as well. So it's just making that distinguishing that the people were going to fall from the high, those with high rank, all the way down to the common folk. All right, so Romans 11, 10 through 15. I'm going to go ahead and read it. It says, let their eyes be darkened that they may not see, and bow down their back always. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Haya forbid, but rather through their salvation is come unto the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy. Now, if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify mine office, if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? So this speaks of a remnant, because there was going to be a few that would be left over, and hopefully the hope would be that they would be saved as well. And that was a hope that Paul was expressing here, amidst of all of the other things that he said as being an apostle of the Gentiles and all that stuff. All right, now the last portion I wanted to talk about, and we are almost done for tonight. I just have four more precepts to cover here. Something interesting that I came across was, as I mentioned earlier tonight when we first started, about the hearts melting. Here we see that Isaiah, let me go back over here. Isaiah says, wherefore my bowels shall sound like a harp for Moab, and my inward parts for Kir Haresh. And the NIV says, my heart laments for Moab like a harp, my inmost being for Kir Haresheth. So again, the heart and the stomach basically are being tightened together. So I looked up, because I had read about this before. Let me see. I don't know if I can, can you guys see this here? I know it's really small. Are you able to see it? I'm gonna read a little bit here, just, okay, all right. Let me just read it. Let me see. Okay, does it still look blurry? I wanted you guys to be able to read along, but I'll just go ahead and I'll read it now. Okay, so this is speaking of the kinnor harp, which is the same harp that King David used to play when King Saul was having his nightmares. All right, so the Nebel is virtually always mentioned together with the kinnor lyre and must have had a similar or at least complementary character. Comparing the two, the Mishnah states that the strings of the Nebel were made of sheep's large intestine, those of the kinnor of its small intestine. Having thicker strings, the instrument's register was therefore presumably lower and its sound possibly louder than that of the kinnor, the latter confirmed. Moreover, since it was louder, the Nebel had to be matched with additional lyres when played in ensembles. No fewer than 2 Nebelim and no more than 6. Neither fewer than 6 kinnorart or more may be added. So basically saying, and I just wanted more than anything to point out that the lyres that used to be played, or the harps that used to be played in those times, came from the intestines of a sheep. I don't know. There's an interesting connection with that. When you think about, again, how in these precepts, let me read them and then we'll tie things together. Psalm 7 and 9 says, oh, let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end, but establish the just, for the righteous Allahim trieth the hearts and the reins. And the reins here is also the same as the kidneys. And as we know, the high priests were given the kidneys to give as an offering to the Most High. Those organs were always what was given without the fat, with the visceral fat being removed. Job 16:13 says, his archers compass me round about. He cleaveth my reins asunder and doth not spare. He poureth out my gall upon the ground. And again, so we see the reins, he cleaveth my reins asunder. So he's like grabbing him from the back and pouring out his gall. Like the gall is connected to the liver, which is connected to the stomach once again. Lamentations 3:13 says, he hath caused the arrows to his quiver to enter into my reins. So what am I trying to say with all of this? Again, this verse in verse 11, this what it says here, my heart laments for Moab like a harp, or my let me go back to KJV. Wherefore my bowels shall sound like an harp for Moab. This is like a gut-wrenching feeling that Isaiah was feeling for the people. And it goes back to saying once again, there is a lament that we should feel, a certain level of grief, not feeling haughty like we're better than anybody else because we are enlightened or we're awake or the veil is removed from our eyes. Much more to instead pull us towards a desire to pray and fast and weep for these people so that they may come to the light. That's all I wanted to say about that. I just thought, I don't know, I thought that was really, really interesting about the harp. One thing that I read and I was like, I can't prove this with scriptures, but supposedly King David, and we know that he was like ruthless when it came to killing the enemies in the wars that he did. You know, obviously there was that portion when Saul became super jealous of him, how they praised him because Saul had killed 1,000 but King David had killed 10,000. But when he was still in servitude of Saul, it's believed that he would use the intestines of the people that he had killed and put those on the lyre as the strings of the harp, and would play the intestines of the enemy for Saul when Saul would have his nightmares. That's just something I read. I don't know if it's the truth, but exactly, Liz, like I could see that happening, and you know, I wouldn't put it past King David. The last thing I wanted to read is Deuteronomy 23:3, which says, an Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Most High, even to their 10th generation. Shall they not enter into the congregation of the Adon forever? And that ties into the last verse here, verse 14. But now the Most High have spoken, saying, within 3 years, as the years of an hireling, the glory of the Moabites shall come to an end with all that great multitude, and the remnant shall be small, a few, all their glory shall come to an end. You know, in Deuteronomy, that was an instruction that the Most High gave. Of course, again, as I mentioned when we first started chapter 15, Ruth was, hold on 1 minute. Ruth was, you know, one out of the many that was plucked out and still used for the glory of the Most High. So there is a hope, but the remnant of that lineage would be small. And for the most part, the Ammonites and the Moabites, yes, Job was also, no, I believe Job was, there's a Gadda precept that says the women are not included. Right. The daughters were not included. And Job, I believe he was an Edomite. I think you're right, Jess. I think he was an Edomite. I'm not 100% sure at the moment. But all in all, the Ammonites and the Moabites, those are the two lineages of Lot. So that's why in Deuteronomy Those are the two lineages that are mentioned there. But that's it. We're all done now. Thank you again so much for joining, and hopefully this was edifying tonight, giving us all a hope that as long as we stay in covenant with our Heavenly Father, there is a promise that we will receive, and our Messiah is coming soon, soon, soon.